Welcome back. In a moment, we'll examine how to stay safe online. But first, here are some other stories to keep an eye on. A Canadian student has been charged over the fatal shooting of 6 people at a mosque in Quebec on Sunday evening. 27-year-old Alexandre Bissonnette faces 6 counts of first-degree murder and 5 of attempted murder. US President Donald Trump has fired his acting Attorney General after she ordered the Justice Department lawyers not to defend his controversial immigration ban. Miss Yates was placed in the role during the Obama administration. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has condemned an Iranian missile test as a flagrant violation of a UN Security Council resolution. Mr. Netanyahu indicated that he would discuss renewed sanctions against Iran when he meets the US President Donald Trump in February. When we post on social media, when we buy something online or with a bank card, even when we use public transport, we add to a pool of online data about ourselves. How can we keep that data safe? And can we rely on the companies we trust to keep it safe as well? As a result of the amount of sensitive information being shared online, Data Privacy Day was launched in 2007. Organised by the US National Cybersecurity Alliance, the event is intended to highlight online vulnerabilities and promote awareness about privacy among companies and customers. Details about your health, where you live, any criminal history you might have, and your financial records are all valuable commodities. This kind of sensitive information can be stolen if you don't take steps to keep it safe. But it's not only individuals that have to worry about protecting their data. In recent years, bulk data collections become a volatile issue. Data entrusted to a company is still at risk of being stolen. In 2014, a number of celebrities had their Apple iCloud accounts hacked and sensitive personal pictures stolen and then released online. In January 2014, US superstore Target announced that the names, addresses, email addresses and telephone numbers of 70 million customers had been compromised. That followed a 2013 revelation from the company that 40 million credit and debit card numbers had been obtained by hackers. And in 2016, Yahoo released details about 2 hacks that occurred in 2013 and 14. The breaches saw user information stolen from as many as 1.5 billion accounts. Well, to discuss that further, I'm joined by David Haynes, who's a visiting lecturer specialising in information management at the City University of London. Also with us is Jason Murdoch, who is the technology and cybersecurity reporter at the International Business Times. David Haynes, it's a huge leap of trust, this, isn't it? That we engage in all these commercial companies, commerce and everything else, having an act of faith they're going to look after our numbers.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to educating people about safe use of the technology. And just as we teach children about safe traffic awareness on the roads rather than banning fast cars, maybe we need to adopt a similar approach when we look at the technology to teach people almost from primary school level upwards about safe use of technology.
Are we not doing that already?
Not really. There was a survey done recently which suggested that the majority of people didn't even know that there was a Data Protection Act, for instance, which is, you know, one of the main pillars of protection for people's privacy in this society.
Is it the sheer pace of change, Jason, the speed with which these devices have come along and we do almost everything on a tablet or a phone for some people, that means that we are not being cautious enough?
I mean, everything's connected now. You know, you have a phone in your pocket that is technically a supercomputer compared to what we had 20 years ago. With that connectivity comes risks. You're putting information and your own data online at an unprecedented scale. Talking about Facebook, I know in your program you said about Yahoo. All this information is just now being put online. A lot of people don't read the terms and conditions and aren't aware of what's actually being done with their information.
But we don't have much choice, do we? Because if we want to use these services, if we want to be part of the sharing generation, you don't read the terms and conditions. You scroll through it and click accept because you want that app or you want that service. Are you saying we should actually pause and read some of this stuff?
Absolutely. I think people need to be a lot more
But there's 22 pages of it on the phone. I mean, nobody's going to read it all, are they?
At least give it a skim.
How do we better educate ourselves about that?
I think that's where education comes into it, and also public pressure. Facebook faced a problem back in 2010 when they started to reveal what people's shopping habits were, and they were doing that automatically. They'd done that without permission. There was such an upswell of indignation that people started lobbying their Congress representatives to push for legislation. That forced Facebook to change its attitude and to actually introduce better safeguards for users. So I think that it's a two-way street, that yes, it's, technically we should read everything, but we don't. We just don't have the time. This is an alternative.
What about the move to putting our bank details for automatic transactions through these devices? Now, is that a foolish thing to do, or should we be able to trust the technology that I will be able to buy something on an impulse and that company will look after my data, my email address and my bank details? What do you think? Is it incumbent on them to look after my information?
Absolutely, and I think that there are remedies in law against breaches of confidentiality, loss of data, careless use. And one of the interesting things is the new General Data Protection Regulation, which is due to come into force next year, will actually add those protections. It will create better enforcement and larger penalties for breach of that kind of trust.
What are the mistakes we're making then, from your earlier remarks, when you think we're not a bit naive or a bit like children learning to cross the road? What is the equivalent to the Green Cross Code or whatever we need to do?
If you're not sure about something, don't put it up on social media.
Okay. That's fairly obvious, isn't it?
Yes. But, I mean, in social media, we create these sort of comfortable zones where we're talking to our friends, where people who reflect our own view of the world are posting their opinions. And we get into this filter bubble, as Eli Paris talks, an American academic, talked about. Actually, what we need to do is to put the... be aware that anything we put up there is potentially visible to the whole world and not just to the friends or the people that we've identified.
In terms of a discipline, in terms of using email addresses and things like this, there isn't something for nothing. Obviously, the companies want us to register or want to have that email address because they're going to do something with it. It's valuable to them. Mm-hmm. How do they monetize just owning all those email addresses?
If something is free on the internet, you are the product. That's the kind of the general gist of it. If, for example, you sign up for Facebook and it's a free service, it's not free. Your data is what they commoditize. Your data is what they sell to advertisers.
Or
it's
your eyeballs, perhaps. I mean, if we think of the Twitter feed, they're now putting adverts in the feed. So without doing anything, you can sign up for free. But just they're putting stuff in front of your eyes. And that's enough for them, is it?
Well, I mean, as I said, you're putting basically your entire life on the internet these days. Twitter, you're saying...
Well, not everybody. Not all of us do it.
Facebook is unprecedented in how people are putting photographs and videos of themselves online. Buying patterns, and everything is online now. Everything goes through your phone. These companies hold more data than anything in the past. This is the...
I understand that, and they've got this great silo of information about us. But it doesn't necessarily have to harm us, David, does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, there are a lot of risks associated with social media, the reports of bullying and of mistaken identity and identity theft and so on.
But that's social implications rather than criminal or financial implications.
Well, some of it may be criminal if somebody steals your identity and then uses it for nefarious effects. Some of the security issues where somebody has a similar name to somebody who's under suspect and then they're targeted and so on. But I mean, going back to what you were asking about what generates all of this, we have to remember that the largest companies, some of the largest companies in the world, like Facebook, like Alphabet, formerly Google, they generate their income from online behavioral advertising, what you were talking about as eyeballing, that is what drives the whole industry, it's advertising, and they do very well out of that, but the stakes are very high.
We kind of understand that, though, don't we, when we see it? And we sign up to that service and we know that? Or do you think people are naive and think they really do think they're getting something for nothing?
in some ways that could be seen as a benefit. Certainly for some, if you're looking for a particular product or service, it might be quite useful for something to pop up, or to have screened out the things that you're clearly not interested in because your profile doesn't fit with that kind of advertising target group.
People are still surprisingly naive, I suppose, about some of the web-based services. I mean, I think Gmail's a famous one. We all know, don't we, that those emails are sort of read by the Gmail service and appropriate adverts pop up alongside your email discussions. Should we be concerned about that? It means someone in Google knows that last week I might have bought a certain kind of paint or another kind of lawnmower. Does that really matter to me?
If you're not, it's a personal preference, I think. A lot of people go straight to the idea that, oh, I've got nothing to hide, so I don't mind that people are roaming through, my email address. But
you're suggesting that's too naive, is it? Is that foolish?
No, I think that I think people just need to understand the risks and or understand what these companies do. Gmail, in their terms and conditions, clearly says that they're doing this.
Yeah.
If you read it, you would know.
But there's nothing we can do if you put your faith in one of these companies. If they then suffer some kind of data breach through their own negligence or their own infrastructure failure, we just have to sit there as a consumer. That's a bit like the gas board suddenly cutting us off, isn't it?
No, there are remedies in law, and certainly that's one of the areas that's been strengthened lately under the Data Protection Act. There can be fines up to £500,000 a year, and with the European General Data Protection Regulation that comes into force, that will be up to 4% of global turnover of the company. Pretty substantial fines. We've seen recently some of the other regulatory agencies levying hefty fines. That's something that may affect their behaviour.
I think there is a consumer side, if I could just cut in as well, that people need to get better at protecting their own security. Still, we see when you're analysing these breaches that happen almost on a daily basis, when you analyse what people are putting in as their very basic password protection, it's still 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you're doing that, there's no
Then
hope.
you deserve everything that happens.
I did not say that.
Well, I can see there. Two-stage identification, all that kind of stuff is available if you just put it up.
Absolutely, and people should be using it, yeah.
OK. David and Jason, thank you both very much indeed. We end with our Inside Bite. This is a little something that we feel you should know. Like mini discs and Google Glass, 3D television is to be consigned to the tech graveyard of history. Manufacturers LG and Sony have joined Samsung in their decision to stop making the TV sets as consumer demand dwindled. Instead, companies will focus on high-resolution televisions, which are believed to have more universal appeal. The hype around 3D TV peaked at the release of the first Avatar film 7 years ago. Perhaps when the next instalment arrives, it will reignite our desire for 3D viewing once again. Well, that's all from me for now. I'm Martin Stanford. That was Insight.